Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is sponsored anonymously. Learning is dedicated in honor of her husband, Meir ben Victoria. May Hashem bless you to always be b'simcha and grow in your midot, Torah learning, Yirat Shamayim, and always feel Hashem's love and presence in your life. Baruch Hashem, may Yehuda Leon ben Jamila get happily married this year to his right zivug and build a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael. Happy birthday. Breakfast in the Class is dedicated also in loving memory for the Leilui Nishmat of the Sassoon children on their 10th yard site. Also dedicated and sponsored by Batya Kahan of Batya's Kitchen, who is absolutely killing it with the Pesach offerings. If anyone needs Pesach made from top to bottom, soup to nuts, Batya's Kitchen is really, literally, it's like a factory. You got to check it out. Also dedicated in loving memory of Farouk Shoshani, Nishmat Farouk Bat Saltanat Yosef Alevi, Aleh Shalom on her Askara, sponsored by her grandson Emmanuel Zara. Ten Nishmatat Surah B'Tzura Haim. Also dedicated in honor of Benjamin Yumi Shwed, who's 97 years old and was recently blessed to celebrate the birth of his first great-great-grandchild. Wow. Sponsored by his grandchildren Rivka and Philippe Schaefer. That is remarkable. What a zechut that must be. Also, for the Refuah Shlema of Eliyahu Shimon Bazar Fortuné, Haim Rafael Ben Frida, and the continued health of Chana Bat Simafega. The week of breakfast on the class dedicated by AJ Kidney in honor of the awe-inspiring people of the Safra Synagogue. You're helping us keep people alive. Year of breakfast on the class dedicated in loving memory of Nishmat Ruth Orfali Bat Adela, sponsored by her family. Breakfast on the class. Thank you, Rabbi Farhi, for your classes. I have been listening for many years, and they have and continue to make an incredible impact on my life. Sponsored by Yigal El Maleh. Hazaku Baruch. That's very special. Thank you so much. And finally, learning for this week is dedicated by the Torah Center Silver donors Stanley and Jenny Chira for the Refuah Shlema of Haim Rafael Ben Frida. My friends, one last thing, we cannot move forward without dedicating today's class to the Refuah Shlema of Pinchas Rafael Ben Sarah and Leilui Nishmatehem of Mrs. Seda and her two children, who were unfortunately killed in this car crash on this past Shabbat, literally on the yard site of the Sassoon children. I am too small to know exactly what Hashem is telling us. I will allow people that are much greater than me to interpret Hashem's message. But my friends, our hearts have to go out. We have to be broken. We need to be crying for a fellow Jew who unimaginably sees his wife and two daughters and son walk out the door, on Shabbat morning, to never see three of them ever again. It is an unimaginable tsar, and the community is coming together to try and be there for somebody who, cannot be helped, but at the same time is enveloped in the biggest hug of our entire community. I know him and his family from when I'm a little child, and we are feeling for you, we are praying for you, and we are standing with you in this very, very, very challenging moment. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless you with health and strength to be able to parent and to raise your baby and Be'ezrat Hashem, the child that's fighting for his life. Everybody is rooting for you and praying for you during this time. My friends, let's begin. The Torah tells us, Adam ki yakriv mikem korban lamonai. A man who will bring a korban, a sacrifice to you, Hashem. Adam ki yakriv mikem. A man who will bring from amongst you, Korban, a sacrifice to Hashem. However, our Chachamim see something a little bit different in these words. Not Adam ki yakriv mikem, from amongst you, O Israel, if someone brings a Korban, but rather Adam ki yakriv mikem, when a person will bring and sacrifice mikem from themselves, Korban lamonai. Now this leads us to a truth that we've discussed many times before, that the nature of Korban describes to us one of the truisms of korbanot in general, but really connection and love in a wider sense. The word for korban for a sacrifice literally has within it the word, the sacrifice to bring a korban, but also karvan, which means to become close, to find connection, to be me'ureh, to be connected with. And the idea, therefore, that our Chachamim are telling us here is that connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and coming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu carries with it the responsibility of some form of sacrifice. All connection requires sacrifice. And if there's no sacrifice whatsoever in the connection, then there is no connection. So someone once asked me, what does that mean? What do you mean, there's no connection? I explained. I said, imagine a person is married to someone, but they give them nothing. So it's true that on paper they're married. It's true that legally, halachically, they might be married. But is there any connection to their marriage? No. The fact that everything is beautiful and everything is going as it's supposed to be, and she does every single thing for you, but you do nothing for her, tells me that you don't have a marriage, you have a cleaning lady. You have a butler. You have a concierge service. You have a baby machine to give you a family. But you sure as heck do not have a wife. Because connection requires sacrifice. It is when a person is giving up of something that connection is created. So in a certain sense, the difficulties that we experience in our life and the challenges that we experience in our life represent the nature of kurva, of connection, of coming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. My friends, so I want to try and, first of all, I want to give this to you as a general yesod, and I want you to plug in the values of what that means for yourself. What it means is, on some level, every moment of difficulty, of struggle in your life, is actually a moment of closeness with Hashem. And the fact that in this moment it feels like Hashem is so far away from me, He's so unknowable, I can't understand Him, I can't connect to Him because of how much difficulty I'm experiencing. It is that specific sacrifice to be and to find emunah and closeness to Hashem in that time, that is kurva, that is getting close to God. That's what I mean. And the truth is, this is true about human connection, and it's true about connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But what's interesting to me is that on some level, Parashat Vayikra is communicating that there are all different types of closeness. There's a Korban Oleh, or Olah. Now, I called it Oleh so a person would understand what the challenge is. The challenge of a Korban Olah is that all of the Korban goes to God. There's no part in it for you, but there's also no part in it for the Kohen either. And that's a sacrifice. And let me explain what the sacrifice is. You know, a lot of times a person will see a tzaddik, a holy person, and they'll want to go get a beracha. And they'll be desperate to get a beracha. And because they want a beracha, so they'll do whatever it takes in order to get and push and shove. And even if, as an example, the rabbi is exhausted, insist on the meeting. You know, you see sometimes that the person, we are placing our faith in a holy man. A Kohen is a holy man. If I'm bringing Korban, odds are there's something in my life I'd like to see improve, physical or spiritual. And now when I'm looking at this Kohen, and I think to myself, at least let me get him a piece of my Korban, and then he'll give me a beracha, he'll bless me, he'll pray for me. The Korban Olah says, no, everything needs to be given to God. And the way I see that is that there are types of sacrifice where the sacrifice that you make is that you give everything to Hashem. I think on some level, when a person suffers in such a difficult way, and they cannot see, you know, sometimes person will have a challenge in their shalom bayit, and they're praying to Hashem, but you know what? Even though they have challenge with shalom bayit, they still have many of the benefits of the bayit. Like as an example, you might have a great husband and a great wife married together. They're not getting along, but they're servicing each other's needs. So maybe at least I feel like I got something, even though I don't feel like I got a great relationship or a great marriage. So I could pray to Hashem and feel like, Hashem, I got a piece, but I didn't get everything. Korban Olah is that I feel connected to God even as I have given everything to Him. I got no pieces. That's that kind of a sacrifice. There are times in relationships in which you are giving everything to the other, and you're receiving literally almost nothing. I think sometimes of people who are standing by very sick partners that are very sick for a very long time. I think to myself, that right now is a Korban Olah relationship. It's a sacrifice where you're giving away all the pieces. My friends, there are some korbanot, there are some kurva moments which are built of partial sacrifice and partial receive. Korban hatat, korban shelamim. Korban shelamim is where everybody gets, right? Korban todah, lots of different korbanot. I was thinking, well, we could spend a few hours talking about the nature of each sacrifice and the nature of each kurva of closeness to Hashem that a person experiences in this life. But we won't have enough time to cover it in breakfast in the class. So I thought maybe we could at least talk a little bit about the Korban of Korban Pesach. What is the Korban of Pesach? What is the sacrifice that a Jew makes when they bring the Korban Pesach? You're eating a big shawarma dinner, right? Fantastic. Everybody in your family is feasting on the Korban Pesach, and your good friends. This is like a Sunday afternoon barbecue. What's the sacrifice in the Korban Pesach that brings a person closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So I think that there's different versions to answer this question. Version number one is Pesach 1.0. Korban Pesach 1.0, first time in Egypt, was a tremendous sacrifice. In fact, at the time they knew that they were literally slaughtering the god of the Egyptians. Now imagine you have a people that is oppressing your people for 210 years, beating, torturing, with unbelievable cruelty. And then God says to you, listen, I have something that I want you to do. I want you to take the god of the Egyptians, tie it down to your bed. Let the sheep be bleeding, right? Out the window, the Egyptians will hear, right? I mean, is there anything more that's poking the beast than that? So in year 1.0, Pesach 1.0, the Jewish people gave the ultimate sacrifice. They literally sacrificed and risked their lives and the lives of their family to bring the Korban Pesach. But my friends, what about in 2.0 and 3.0? What sacrifice was there in Korban Pesach in years, in the future years? And I want to share that I think that there's quite a few angles to take on this. Angle number one, these are all found in the laws, in the halachot of Korban Pesach. Angle number one, the halacha is with regards to Korban Pesach, etzem lo tishberu bo. You can't break a bone in the Korban Pesach. Now what does that mean, you can't break a bone in the Korban Pesach? And why is that so important? And obviously there's many different answers to this concept. First and foremost, because Hashem said so. But one of the ideas that was being communicated is that when a person is very hungry, so they're ravenously eating the Korban Pesach. But when you're eating it in a way where you're not breaking any bones, you're not getting down to the bottom of the meat, that's the way that a person who's not desperate for meat lives. It's okay if I don't get every last piece of meat here. When a poor man eats an animal, they break every bone to get to every piece of the Korban Pesach. But because we were supposed to be leaving as royalty, so Hashem says, "Etzem lo tishbiru bo." Now, I think that concept is not such a difficult one when we are actually living life as kings. Right? Aren't we? You know, on Monday night, you go to a restaurant and you order whatever cut you want from the animal. It comes to the table, kosher, Bet Yosef, Bishul Yisrael, with 3 different dips for your steak. I mean, we live a life of luxury. We're very pampered. We're very blessed. So what's the sacrifice in having luxury in Korban Pesach? For us, for me and you. For them, in hunger, as slaves, I understand it. But in Pesach 2.0, what was the sacrifice of that? I'd like to share, first and foremost, it is true that we live lives of luxury. But oftentimes, our luxury is not in our spirituality. So we'll go out for a beautiful night, spend all that money, enjoy ourselves, 3 different dips for the steak. Great. I don't know what the 3 different ones are. I just know that there's 1 light one and 2 dark ones. My friends, what does it mean to luxuriously Jew? What does that mean? Now, on a simple level, it means to spend the money that you need to do the mitzvot that you can do on the highest possible level. So that means buying the nicest pair of tzitzit and talit. That means buying the most mehudar tefillin. Again, these things, they get me so frustrated. The guy drives a Mercedes AMG. I don't know what AMG stands for, but I know it stands for vroom. The trim on the AMG is like immaculate. The guy's shoes, okay, gorgeous. John Loeb from over here, $5,000 a pair of shoes, awesome. Love it. His tailored suit, fantastic, from Isaiah. Is that how you pronounce it? I can never know how to pronounce it. Isaiah. No, it's not Isaiah. I made this mistake. It's spelled differently, and someone who worked there corrected me. It's not Isaiah, it's Isaiah or something like that. It's not spelled the same as the prophet. Okay? Beautiful. His shoes, his suit, his car, the best. And the guy comes and tells me he needs a new pair of tefillin. He says, how much does tefillin cost? I tell him, well, the price has gone up, but it's not cheap. You can get Ashkenaz tefillin costs this much. Sephardi tefillin costs this much. Right? Tefillin mihudar costs this much. Wow, it's crazy. How much is the most expensive? This much. Oh, that's very expensive, Rabbi. Give me I don't know. Which one should I get you? I don't know, get me the, just make sure it's kosher. Just make sure it's kosher. Let's return your suit and go to Burlington. Let's return your shoes and go to Payless. We are luxuriously fulfilling our physical needs, but do not spend that same luxury on our spirituality, on the best sefarim. I remember a little while ago, someone asked me, we're learning the Gemaras. The guy says, like, I want to get in the Gemara class. He goes, does the shul have Gemaras from last time? Do you borrow anyone's clothes? Do you borrow anyone's shoes? Why would you borrow someone's Gemara? Now again, this is not a judgment. It's a calling. Hashem is saying, "Ve'etzem lo tishbiru bo." I want you to do the Korban Pesach. I want your luxury not to be in your dinner out with your friends only. I want it to be for the Korban. Now, the lowest level of this luxury is in how much money you spend on a pair of tefillin, on a menorah, on a mezuzah, on a talit, on your tzedakah. No, it's gorgeous. You could go to certain places. Just think about this. Certain places, and you spend a lot of money to be part of this exclusive group, right? To go to a members club. I don't know of any tzedakah circle that you have to spend $200,000 to be allowed to give a monthly so that you can give tzedakah. I don't know of such a thing. Does anyone here know of such a thing? You know of such a tzedakah club? I don't know of such a tzedakah club. You know of one? UJA King David. UJA King David. And what do you get for it? Nothing.
You get to go to a conference.
You get to go?
To a conference.
You get to go to a conference. I don't want you to go to anything. I was thinking the other day, by the way, I have a little group that I send out every once in a while. If there's a big tzedakah need that I'm aware of, I need to, so I'll ask people that want to help. So I have a short list, a tzedakah APB list. And they get my message. I met this Talmid Chacham, the guy has nothing, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll decide if they want to give. Could you imagine if I took all the best tzedakah opportunities and I only gave them to the diamond level tzedakah giver club that you spent $100,000 to find out about? I'll give you an example. Some of you saw a video that just went around again. It was for a Holocaust survivor who had come back to his religion at a very advanced age, and all he wanted was to own his own pair of tefillin. I put out the message, we're going to buy him a pair of tefillin. Do you know how many pairs of tefillin I got from that request? Everybody wanted in on that one. And by the way, I understand what a great mitzvah that is. Could you imagine if I sold access to the best tzedakah opportunities that I got? I found someone, Hazit, the guy they're going to cremate him. You have an opportunity to do chesed shel emet, gold card tzedakah givers only. Where's the luxury? Now that luxury, number one, is in financials. But could you understand this idea in a broader sense? Just in a broader sense. I'll give you an example of what I mean. There's also luxury in time. The second element that we find in the Korban Pesach is that when you eat the Korban Pesach, how do you have to eat it? Motnechem, right? Hagurim. You have to have your clothing you're belted, you're suited and booted, like they say in England, right? You got everything with you. You're ready to go. You're not eating it with a bib. You're eating it in your finest, all dressed up, ready to leave Egypt at a moment's notice. So this idea means you came to the Seudah. Again, I want to express what I mean here. You come to the Shabbat Seudah. How are you dressed at the Shabbat table? You came home. First thing you did before you did Kiddush, your shoes are off, your jacket's off, your tie's off, your shirt's off, your pants off. You're sitting there now at the table. I'm eating dinner. You're not eating dinner. You're having the Shabbat Seudah. What does the Shabbat Seudah look like? How long does it take? Is it 30 seconds and then it's over? Did you spend time at the table talking about the parasha, about the holiday? There's a way in which you're supposed to eat your meal. That's a Korban, that's a sacrifice of the Korban Pesach. Now, by the way, I don't know, if ever there was Gan Eden in this earth, Gan Eden in this earth is Friday night on a couch. Agree with me or not? Falling asleep on a couch Friday night, most beautiful thing ever. Ideally, with a book in your hand. Right? If the book falls that way, problem. If the book falls this way, extra credit. Right? What a feeling of Gan Eden. But at the same time, to push that off, to be at the Seudah, to pay homage to the fact that Borei Olam granted us 3 royal Seudot with him over a Shabbat. That's luxuriously being a Jew. Spending the time, not rushing through something. That's one chelek of the sacrifice of the Korban Pesach. But my friends, the true, I believe, the true sacrifice of the Korban Pesach is one of the lesser known ones. And that's the one that we find in the Haggadah itself. The Haggadah says that you have to teach your son all the laws of the Korban Pesach. And which law does it tell us that you're supposed to teach your son? Of all of the laws of Korban Pesach, and there are many, by the way. You have to eat it roasted and not cooked. That's one. You have to eat it in an echal ela leminuyav. Only the people that were written down that were supposed to eat from this are supposed to eat. Lots of halachot. But which halakha do you teach your son? Ed maftirin achar hapesach afikoman. That you don't eat anything after the Korban Pesach. You don't change the taste in your mouth. You don't go to a dessert after the Korban Pesach. The final taste in your mouth is the taste of the Korban Pesach. I believe that if the Haggadah chose to use that specific one to tell you what you're supposed to teach your son, then there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in that specific halakha. And what is the idea of in maftirin achar pesach avikoman? What are we being taught? That you can't change the flavor from your mouth. It needs to be the last thing that you taste in the evening. So I want to maybe try and give you this last piece and what this will end. I asked you, what is it that a person is sacrificing in the Korban Pesach? That's what I asked you. I asked you, what is it that brings us close to God from this Korban? What is it? And I mentioned that that closeness comes from the sacrifice in the halakha. I believe the Shem Yishmuel, the Sfat Emet, they all talk about this idea called Mishchu Ukechu Lachem. Mishchu means draw towards you, pull. Ukchu, and take for yourself the Korban Pesach. That's what they say. And the rabbis tell us about Mishchu Ukechu Lachem that in that was found 2 requirements. One, to refrain, to do the mitzvot aseh, and one to do the mitzvot lo ta'aseh. In Mishchu Ukechu Lachem. One is a commandment, and one is to withdraw, if you will. I think that this concept is what we're being told over here. And this, I believe, is one of the challenges that human beings face. On Yom Kippur, when you're here in the synagogue, and you're praying, and you're fasting, and you're in shul, and you're thirsty, is there anything that feels more spiritual than that? No. That's when we feel most connected, correct? What is the least spiritual, a mitzvah that a person could fulfill? A mitzvah where the spirituality comes from doing something which is completely physical. I want you to imagine the mitzvah of eating basar and yain on the holiday. Now, no doubt that's a mitzvah, but no doubt also Chateaubriand steak, the way my wife makes it, and a delicious wine. I'm not a wine guy, right? But if I was, right? Paired perfectly with the exact right wine. I could imagine that would not be such a hard mitzvah to do. Right? Could you imagine? Right? Probably not so. To make hamotzi on the most delicious sourdough bread, right? I don't know that that's so hard. You know what's hard about a mitzvah that represents consuming something spiritual, physical? What's hard is to take the enjoyment in a physical thing, which is the mitzvah, but to not be sidetracked by it. So in other words, I'm enjoying this beautiful steak on the holiday, and I'm not thinking steak, I'm thinking Yom Tov. En maftirin achar Pesach afikoman says, that lingering taste of the Korban Pesach in your mouth, I want you to remember it and have halachot attached to that taste. If you could take the most physical of things and think about it like it's a mitzvah, intimacy between man and a woman is very pleasurable, but to take that pleasure and to say that this is a mitzvah that God gave me, Peru Urvu, it's a mitzvah that God gave me, closeness with my wife. To take something that's so beautiful, and it's so physical and tangible, and it engages our senses and our pleasure centers. And we say to God that the height of physicality I'm giving to you, I'm attaching halachot to that thing, that's in maftirin, achar apesach afikoman. That in some ways is the ultimate sacrifice. Because when you're in a sacrifice mode, you could sacrifice a lot. But when you're in non-sacrifice mode, you don't want to sacrifice anything. So if, as an example, you're sitting in the back seat of a station wagon, all right? Because you're on your way to somewhere, and it's not hard to move over and squeeze because you're already squeezing. When you're in first class, and you have this much room, right? That's already a very different ball game. If someone asks you to downgrade to economy so that someone, an elderly woman, could have your seat, that's much harder because I'm not in a sacrifice mindset. When I'm in the physical space, to still remember and attach halachot and maftirin, I can't end off with a beautiful dessert. That is a very, very beautiful sacrifice and a korban, and that is the coming close of the Korban Pesach to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May God bless us to see every one of our sacrifices and to be able to translate that sacrifice into closeness. And for me, says the pasuk, Kirvat Elohim li tov, literally translated means closeness to God is so good for me. But maybe a little deeper, we understand today the pasuk, Kirvat Elohim li tov, sacrificing for God, litov, feels good for me. And when a person sees it that way, then ultimately they get all the benefits of a person who's connected with the source of all beracha. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Chananya ben Akasha omer,